Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The Labour Party has brought out a European election manifesto. They certainly have. And so we should be clear now about whether they are basically a pro-Brexit party or basically an anti-Brexit party. Jonathan Ashworth, the Shadow Health Secretary, is with me. Jonathan Ashworth, thanks for bringing out a manifesto which we can look at. Let's look at what it says on the crucial issue. Here it is here. Sorry. If we can't get agreement along the lines of our alternative plan or a general election, Labour backs the option of a public vote. What does option mean?
Well, we've shown our support on about 3 occasions now in the House of Commons for a public vote. Of course, it didn't have enough Conservative MPs supporting a public vote in the House of Commons, so it fell in the Commons on the occasions when we've had those votes. We've always said, we said it in our 2017 general election manifesto, and we've said it in subsequent occasions, and Jeremy Corbyn has been very clear, that we accept the result of the referendum. After all, Labour MPs didn't obstruct the referendum legislation when it came through Parliament in 2015.
But I'm sorry, I'm still confused. If I'm thinking about my lunch and I say I've got the option of sandwiches or soup or whatever it might be, that doesn't mean I'm going to have them. Option leaves something completely open. So what you're saying in this manifesto is you're saying we want our version of Brexit, option A, or option 1. We would love a general election, option 2. And then if we can't have those things, we might have the possibility, the option of a further referendum. But we're not committing ourselves to it. Actually, when you read it closely, this means we don't want another referendum.
No, I don't think it does. I think to take your lunch analogy, if you want soup and that is what you're trying to get, that is what you can go for. But if you can't get soup, you can get salad instead. Because what we are trying to do is say, look, we want a Brexit deal along a permanent customs union basis, something that secures rights for workers and environmental protections and a single market relationship. That is what we have been negotiating with the government. Not getting very far, by the way, but that's the basis of our negotiations. But if we can't get that, and if it turns out that we're going to have a Tory deal that we don't believe is in the interests of the country, or indeed no deal, which is definitely not in the interest of the country, then we would support. Then we would support a referendum.
You might or you might not.
No, our position is to support a referendum.
That's what option means.
Is in those circumstances. But we've always said that we accept the result of the referendum. We've put forward our alternatives. We're trying to negotiate that with the government. As I say, it's not getting very far, but we're still engaging in those negotiations in good faith.
Let's move from options to priorities.
Sure.
Priority 1 is Brexit. Get us out on a Labour deal. That's your first priority. Priority 2 is a general election. And priority 3, further down the list, is the possibility of a referendum, which might, in due course or not, you heard Nigel Farage, lead to us staying inside the EU. It's way, way down.
Well, it's not way, way down when we voted for it 3 times in the House of Commons. And the reason why we didn't get that referendum in the House of Commons when we voted for it is because there isn't enough support across the whole of the House of Commons for a referendum. Unless Conservative members of Parliament come to a different judgment on a referendum, we can't get one because of the arithmetic of the House of Commons. Now, we have to deal with the reality of the MPs who have been returned to the House of Commons.
But at the moment, as a party, talking to the Prime Minister, you are trying to get Brexit happening.
We're in negotiations with the Prime Minister.
Yeah,
they're not getting very far, but we're trying our best. And
to achieve Brexit.
And we raise the issue of a confirmatory vote in those negotiations as well. But the Prime Minister isn't prepared to compromise. We have been prepared to compromise, and that's been demonstrated by the way we voted on the 3 different occasions in the House of Commons.
In these elections, there are, I think, 4 main pro-Brexit parties. There's UKIP, there's the Brexit Party, there's the Conservative Party, and there's the Labour Party. Those are all the 4 Brexit parties. Let me read you Jo Swinson, the Deputy Leader of the Lib Dems, who was on this programme last week. To anyone watching this programme, she says, who wants to stop Brexit, be in no doubt. A vote for Labour is a vote for Brexit. Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson will use those votes to say the British people want Brexit to happen.
Well, I would say to Jo that people watching this programme, be in no doubt, if you want to stop Nigel Farage's party, and you've just brilliantly demonstrated that Nigel Farage doesn't want to stand on his record, because his record is one of wanting to privatise the NHS, he's wanting big tax cuts for the very rich and penalising working people in this country. If you want to stop Nigel Farage in these elections, you have to vote Labour. The Liberal Party or the sort of Independent Change Party, or whatever name they've got this week, cannot stop the Brexit Party getting MEPs in regions. It's a two-horse race now between Labour and the Brexit Party.
If I was a voter watching this interview, and I was thinking, I disagree with Nigel Farage on the EU, and I disagree with Nigel Farage on immigration, why would I vote Labour, who want to get us out of the EU and who also wants to stop free movement of people? Why would I not vote for a proper Remain party, like the Liberal Democrats, like the Greens, like Plaid Cymru, like the SNP?
Well, the Labour Party is the party that has supported a referendum in the House of Commons 3 times now. The reason that wasn't successful is because Conservative members didn't vote for it, because that is the balance in the House of Commons, because no party has a majority in the House of Commons. That's why we're in such a mess, because, as you know, Theresa May called the general election and made a right hash of it.
Isn't the truth of it that you've forgotten your Nye Bevan and you're wandering down the middle of the road? Nye Bevan famously said people who are in the middle of the road tend to get run over, and that's what's going to happen to you guys, isn't it?
Well, I don't think we will get run over, but it looks to me, and definitely from today's opinion polls and through my campaigning, and I've been talking to people on the streets of Newcastle just yesterday, and on Friday, sorry, is that people are supporting of the Labour Party, but they don't want Nigel Farage's party getting in. And this is a two-horse race now between the Labour Party and the Brexit Party. The Liberals or the Change Party are not going to stop Nigel Farage's party in this election.
They did very well in the local elections.
Only the Labour Party, the Labour Party did better than the Liberal Party in the local elections. Only the Labour Party can stop Nigel Farage. Let's
turn to your responsibility, the NHS. There's reports in the papers this morning about huge cuts in NHS training, involving a massive, massive amount of money. Are you properly funded, and would you reverse all of those training cuts?
Yeah, I mean, this is really important, because we expect in the coming days, perhaps as soon as Tuesday, the government to finally bring forward its interim workforce plan on staffing. We've got 100,000 vacancies across the NHS, and today is International Nurses Day. We've actually lost 200,000 nurses since 2010 under the Tories. It's because they've had a pay freeze. It's because of the huge pressures on the front line, but it's also because they've cut the training budgets, the development budgets by around 200 million. We would reverse those cuts to training, because we want our staff who work in the NHS to be the best trained staff in the world. But at the moment, we're losing so many staff from the NHS. We've got to reverse that.
Let's bring those two themes we've been talking about, the NHS and Brexit, together. And I want to quote you, Jeremy Hunt, long-serving Health Secretary, one of the longest-serving health secretaries in recent times, who's talking about a customs union at the heart of Labour's policy. And he says a customs union would not work for the UK. I was health secretary. The EU would be able to decide that American companies could bid for NHS contracts without us, as the UK having any say at all on an issue that's very emotive to a lot of people in this country. So I don't think it's the right solution. And on the facts, he's right. If you do a customs deal which allows the EU to carry on in control, they can do a TTIP-style deal with the US. We know that the American health companies are desperate to get into the British healthcare system.
Yeah, well, actually...
And you would be absolutely exposed as health secretary.
No, because our version of a customs union is one where we would still have a say over the trade deals. And that is something that the Irish have said is perfectly sensible and would work. Actually, what the government are proposing is the ability to write individual trade deals, which means they would write a trade deal with the US, which would allow Trump's America, big private healthcare firms in the US, getting their hands on contracts in the UK. And I don't want our NHS to be up for sale to the US. So actually, I think our proposal safeguards the NHS. It's actually the Tory proposal that puts it at risk.
But Jonathan Ashworth, you know that the Labour proposal for a customs union deal which gives the UK outside the EU a veto over EU trade deals runs counter to the very beginnings of the Treaty of Rome and is pretty close to being an impossible unicorn. If you don't get that, you are completely exposed.
No, but we have heard. I mean, we had the Ireland, for example, have said this is a perfectly sensible proposal that the Labour Party is proposing. Others in the EU have said something similar. So we would have an influence over those trade deals, and we would be able to protect the NHS. It's actually the Tory proposal that puts the NHS at risk.
If you don't get that seat at the table, how would you stop it?
Well, we would. We would get that seat at the table. That's the point. I mean, we've already had those indications that we would we will be at the table in those circumstances.
All right, Jonathan Ashworth, for now, thanks very much indeed for talking to us.